Minnesota 2020, as the name properly implies, is fighting for the future, it's fighting for investment, it's fighting for what will make Minnesota not just a flyover state, but one with a leading-edge economy in the 21st century. Whether it's economic development or education or healthcare or economic mobility, the paper you just put out on the teacher shortage crisis here in Minnesota, I think you're doing what needs to be done to make sure that Minnesota goes into this new century in great shape. These are the very issues that I've been deeply committed to for nearly all my professional life. I started in politics, I hate to say this, but in 1968 in the presidential campaign in Iowa, as the Iowa caucuses are coming up. And I've been committed to those issues for all my professional life, both in politics and policy. They're the paramount issues that we address at the Center for American Progress. So it's good to have an ally here in Minnesota. CAP and Minnesota 2020 also share a common view about how you approach these issues. Both institutions are committed to progressive policies that promote fairness, opportunity, and the common good. Our shared values and priorities make the current state of our nation a cause for concern for both Minnesota 2020 and CAP, but I think more broadly for progressives everywhere. The insecurity and suffering we see today are a direct consequence of rhetorically savvy but substantively bankrupt conservative policies we've seen put into action, particularly at the federal level. If you'll forgive me a little nostalgia, my friend Mark Lindsay, who served in the White House, is sitting in the audience here today, and now one of Lois Quam's colleagues, and moved back out to Minnesota. But if you permit me just a bit of nostalgia, I served a progressive administration that knew a thing or two about making the economy work. President Clinton turned a record deficit into a record surplus. He paid down the national debt. He cut taxes for working people. He invested in research and technology. He expanded college aid. He presided over an economy that created 23 million jobs, the fastest and longest real wage growth in history, the lowest unemployment rate, and the lowest poverty rates since the 1970s. In short, he made the economy work for working people. And if you don't believe me, I suggest you read Alan Greenspan's book. But over the past nearly 7 years, we've seen how the Bush administration's economic policies have made it difficult for Americans to get ahead. We've seen how the conservative mantra of less government, more tax cuts, and no investment has withered away the social fabric of American communities and the social safety net progressives work so hard to build. What's the result of those policies? Well, today, 37 million Americans live below the official poverty line. That's 5 million more than when the president took office. Millions more are one health problem away from being pushed back below that poverty line. 90 million Americans live and try to raise their families, making only 200% of the poverty wages in this country. Wage and job growth has been historically low in this expansion. Benefits are disappearing. The share of private sector workers with a pension dropped from 50.3% in 2000 to 43.2% in 2006. The share of people with employer-provided health insurance dropped from 64.2% to 59.7% during that time. Family debt is at a record high, with families spending 14.3% of their disposable income just to service their